Straight all day.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves me, you, him, and her to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one package, one philosophy, one method, one mindset, one masterclass. This show right here, it is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how they evaluate you. Now, this is specifically speaking for the business sector. I got one coming up where we talk about from the sports sector very soon, but I want you, if you happen to be an athlete, you're not in the business world quite yet, but if you're an athlete, you are in the business world if you didn't know. You should still pay attention to this because the way that you get evaluated in the business world will also apply in the sports world. And when I do the one where I'm going to be talking about the sports evaluation, those of you who are not athletes, you should pay attention as well because that'll apply to you as well. And there are little things you can pick up from topics that are not specifically targeted towards you. They will still help you. And if you've listened to this show, even one episode of this show, you should already know that. But if this is you're brand new, then I got to make sure I say it so that you remember it. And hey, maybe you don't remember because I say a lot of stuff. You probably heard a lot of episodes and you're inundated with a lot of garbage every single day. So I got to make sure when I'm coming through with some good stuff that I remind you that it's good stuff. How they evaluate you. The reason we're talking about this is because I was speaking at a conference lately and I took this sheet from the front table outside of the room that I was speaking in. And if any of you ever spoken in one of these really big conferences, I'm talking these international conferences where the conference might be like 5 days long. This conference was a 5-day long conference. There are hundreds of people who speak at this conference. There are all these different sessions. There's an expo hall where people do their exhibitions. There are all kinds of things going on. There's so many moving parts, so many people involved that the people who run it, and there are lots of people who run it, they don't have time to go through and evaluate each person who presented or exhibited or who was involved. They don't have time to go through and evaluate each person one by one. The event is too big for them to do that. So what they do is that they crowdsource their evaluations of the presenters, people like myself. And how they do this is very simple. They create an evaluation sheet and they put that sheet in the hands of and in front of every person who actually listens to that person speak. So when I go speak at this event, or let's just say you go speak at one of these big events, when you're in that room speaking, there's going to be a stack of evaluation sheets that get handed out to every person who came into your session and your speech to listen to you. And there's usually an application these days, a smartphone app, where people can log onto the app and they can go find the speakers that they heard and they can give their evaluations right there through the app. They might receive a follow-up email or a phone call, but this is how the organizations who put these events together, they crowdsource the evaluation of you by asking the people who were actually there what they thought of you. So, since I took this sheet and this form that attendees fill out, again, to evaluate me and my worthiness, the reason they do this is to gauge my personal worthiness for if maybe they'll invite me to come back and speak again, or if they see my name pop up again, they say, all right, let's see what Dre did last time he was here. What people said about him last time. Well, we want more of this guy. We want less of this guy. What does this guy do great? What did he do terribly? Or, hey, maybe they're looking for someone to headline the next event. Hey, maybe let's look through the people who were here last year. Let's see who had the best evaluations. Maybe one of them will be it. And that has happened to me before because I've gotten great evaluations from people who heard me at a time when I might not have been very well known in a particular field. So what we're going to talk about here today is how you get evaluated as a presenter when you're at one of these events. But again, as I already said, even if you are not a presenter, even if you're not a professional speaker and you don't plan on becoming one, you have no ambitions on becoming one, still pay attention because these are basic questions that get asked about you by anyone, even if it's not on an evaluation sheet, even if there's no official tally of how these evaluations come up. People are asking these questions about you, even if they're not written down, okay? People are asking these questions of themselves, of you, to themselves, of you, every time that you present anything, whether it be something like what you're listening to right now or watching if you're watching this on video, or a book that you read, or just having a conversation with a person, or you go to a live event. People who are sitting in that room, or if you're presenting at a live event rather, people who are sitting in that room are asking these questions about you, even if there's no official formal gathering of this information. They're asking these questions and answering them. And if these answers are not good, they're not going to think too highly of you, and they probably won't take whatever the next step is in your value add or whatever it is you have to offer next. They're not going to take it if these answers aren't very good. So pay very close attention and make sure that you're hitting every angle with these questions that I'm going to present to you, that are presented to attendees about speakers and presenters, people like me. You follow that? Point number one. Today's topic is how they evaluate you. First question that gets asked: what was the instructor's delivery skill? Or how would you gauge the instructor's delivery skill? Now notice that this question is not asking, does the presenter know their stuff? The question is this person getting their message across clearly, whatever the message may be? It's not asking if you agree with the message or you thought the message was good, but does this person have the ability to actually deliver their message? These days we have basically 3 different ways we can deliver our message, right? You can do it through audio, like you listening to me right now. You can't see me, but you can listen to me. You can do it through video, where you can see a person and you can listen to them. And you can do it through written content, where you can read what the person wrote, but you're not seeing them or listening to them. And then we have hybrids of these, because video, you have an audio element and you have a visual element. You have audio books, where a person basically taking what they already wrote down and they're just speaking it out loud. You have live presentations, where you can see a person and you can hear a person. But I don't think anyone's created like the hybrid where you got all 3, where you can read something, listen to them, and watch them at the same time. I'm not sure anybody's doing anything like that yet, but I'm sure it's coming sometime in the future. So your delivery skill is the measure by the attendee, by the consumer. But whether that's a person sitting in a room, a person listening to you, a person watching you, a person reading you, the consumer's gauge of how well you actually deliver your material. How well are you delivering what you came to share? So if you're a writer, people are questioning your ability to write. If you're speaking, people are questioning how well what's your stage presence like? If you're doing a video, how enjoyable is it to actually watch you on video? These are the delivery skills that you're being gauged on. Again, it's not just about if you know your stuff, but are you getting your message across? Even if I disagree with your message, I can still gauge whether or not you got the point across. Do I understand your point? I get emails back from some of you, and any of you who reads my email. If you don't read my emails every day, go to workonmygame.com to get on the list, because the only way you're not reading them every day is if you're not getting them. But if you're getting them, you're probably reading them every day. And I get replies back from some of you sometimes, of people will say something like, look, Dre, since I write every day, I understand this. People will say, look, I don't always agree with everything that you say, and I don't expect you to. There's no way you're going to agree with 365 consecutive things that anybody says. And someone said to me once, I don't agree with everything that you say, but one thing I respect is that I always understand exactly where you're coming from. I understand exactly what your point is and why you're making a point, and you do a good job of supporting your argument, whatever it happens to be. Even if I disagree, I respect the fact that you actually deliver it, and I know that you know where you stand and that I know where you stand. Again, even if I don't see it the same way. That's what we mean when we say delivery skills. Do we get your point? Again, not do we agree, but do we get your point? Did you catch? Is the person confident and competent as a presenter? This is something that I don't know if I did this episode yet, but it's coming soon. I got a lot on the way. Being confident and competent as a speaker. First of all, do you believe in your ability to deliver what you're saying? And we can tell when someone's confident versus when they're not, right? You can tell when a person's confident in their delivery and when they're not quite sure. And also, are you competent? Meaning, do you actually know the material that you're saying? Or are you fumbling over your words? Do you forget something? Are you drawing a blank? All of this is part of your competence as a speaker. Did I catch everything that you said? So if I'm sitting in the audience, everything that you wanted to get across, did I actually hear it? Did I catch it? Did you say it? Did you mumble? Are you confident in it? Again, do you believe in what you're saying? Can I understand what you're saying? Again, not do I agree. Can I understand? I told you in masterclass number 931, something that is expected of you when you have the word professional next to your name is that you got to make it look easy. If you didn't hear masterclass number 931 and you did not experience masterclass 931, then I suggest you go back and listen to it. When the word professional is next to your name, one of the main things that is expected of you is that you make your work look easier than an amateur would make it look. That's the reason why you're a professional, because you make it look easy. I was playing ball and I was in Germany once, and this agent that I was working with, he took me to the practice of a team, and he had me practice with this team because one reason he wanted to get a good gauge of my game, not just in an empty gym by myself, but against other players. And also he wanted to possibly showcase me to that team that maybe might possibly sign me sometime down the road. They already had all their players, but you never know what could happen. And after that practice, the agent said to me, we were at dinner, and the agent and the agent's assistant said to me, Dre, we were disappointed in your performance today at the practice. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Because the way that we had done the drills and stuff in the practice, it was like these one-on-one drills where you get to play offense and you get to play defense. And they had me matched up with this younger German kid, and I scored on him every single time we did the offense drill, and I stopped him every single time we did the defense drill. And I'm like, what are you talking about? How are you disappointed? I scored every time, and I was 100% on offense and defense throughout the practice. How could you possibly be disappointed in that? And he said, well, the thing is, Dre, even though you scored and you stopped them on defense, it didn't look easy enough. Like, it looked like you were working too hard. You were trying too hard to score your points. You got to make it look easy here, simply because, and he went on to explain, you as an American player playing in this foreign country, even though you're not supposed to just do a thing and do it well, you're supposed to do it well, and you got to make it look like it's easy. You got to make it look like you could do a whole lot more than what you already did. That's what I mean when I say when you're a professional, you got to make the game look easy. You got to have a firm grip of your material. It should be very obvious that you have a firm grip of your material, and that's what we pay you for. As a professional, that's what people are paying for. They're paying for a show. And the show, you make it look easy even though it probably isn't so easy. But that's your job. That's the gap that you have to bridge. That's what makes you a professional, and that's what they pay you for. That's why they drop the bag. Point number 2. Today's topic is how they evaluate you. The second point is knowledge of your subject. All right, this is different from your ability to deliver your message, because again, you could deliver something and not know what you're talking about, but make it look like you do. Knowledge of the subject is, do you actually know what you're talking about? Do you know what the fuck you are speaking on? And this one is, you're going to be evaluated very, what's the word I want to look for? Very carefully, let's just say, on this one, in very much detail on this one. If you get up on a stage anywhere and start talking about a subject and your materials, your information is off, your knowledge is off, or you're speaking something as if it's true when it's actually not true, that's going to hurt you a whole lot. That basically kills your credibility. Your credibility is that you know what you're talking about. Not only do you know the stuff that the people can check you on, but also you can teach them some things. Now, if you don't have knowledge of the subject, you can't teach anybody anything. That means, so it's basically 3 levels you could be at. Level -1, to be on the negative side, means you don't even know as much as the people in the audience know. The people in the audience know more about a subject than you. That's very bad. If that happens, I guarantee wherever you're speaking at, you won't be speaking there ever again. They won't bring you back. Neutral is when everything you say is things that people in the audience already know. They're like, all right, yeah, I heard what you said, but I kind of already knew all the things that you said. Now, that one can be kind of funny because oftentimes what happens is people will sit and listen to everything you say, then they'll say, well, yeah, I already know all the things that you said in there, so, I didn't get anything from it. I already knew that. Well, if you already knew it, then your ass will be on the stage instead of sitting in the audience. That's just my opinion. And the third level, the positive, the plus 1 level, is when not only are you telling people things that maybe they already know or are already familiar with, but also you're adding on by giving them some additional information, additional knowledge on top of the things that they already understand that will help deepen their understanding and also help their implementation of the things that they know. So, for example, when I give speeches, I talk about things like discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. Everyone knows what these are, and if you don't, you got a phone, you can go on Google and you can find the definition of them very quickly. So how can I add value to an audience when I'm talking about things that everyone can easily look up the definition of? Here's how. I will tell them, listen, you understand discipline as this, this, and this, but did you understand this? What about this concept? Let me explain it this way, and let me glue these all together with this through line right here about this, and let me tell you about this philosophy here that I call the third day, and this thing here, and this thing here, and this thing here. So I'm taking the thing that you already understand. That's how we get common ground, so that I don't lose you. I don't want to go over your head, but then I'm going to add on. I'm going to give you more value. Then in confidence, I'm going to tell you this thing here, this thing here. I'm going to tell you this story, and I'm going to draw a through line with this whole philosophy that I call the super you. And then I'm going to tell you about this, and this, and this. So now, again, The baseline is something that we all understand, common ground. Then I'm going to tell you some things that you think you know about confidence. I'm going to tell you why they're not true. And then I'm going to explain to you why they're not true. Then I'm going to replace that old belief with a new belief. That's how you build on it. That's how you demonstrate knowledge of a subject. So it's not you going so far over people's heads that they don't understand what the hell you're talking about. You have to meet them where they are. Then you have to take them to a new place. That is knowledge of a subject. And you must be a professional to be able to do that. Providing examples of your points. So if you're going to give a point and say, this is the thing, you got to give me an example that illustrates that point. Do you have stories that can illustrate your point that people will remember? Because I want to tell you something. People do not remember the information that you share, especially if they only hear it one time. Actually, this place that I had just spoke at, that I got this evaluation sheet from just this morning, as I'm recording this, one of the people who was in attendance there, he went and Googled me and found me. He sent an email to my website asking me a few follow-up questions because he couldn't remember a couple of the things that I said. And that is exactly my point. People do not remember the things, the information that you share if they only hear it one time. Now, the good news for you is that this is recorded and you can listen to it over and over and over again. You can remember information if you use spaced repetition, listening to the same thing over and over, or reading it or watching it over and over again. You can learn things that way through spaced repetition. Stories you can remember off of one time. You can remember a story just hearing it once. And then you could even tell the story after you heard it one time. That's just the way that our human brains are wired, that we easily remember narrative. We do not remember information from one listening. So when you're giving a speech to an audience, all you speakers out there or soon to be speakers out there, please incorporate stories into every piece of information. If you're going to give people new information, you must connect it to a story because they otherwise will not remember it. And if they don't remember it, they're not going to get any value from it, even though you might have been excellent. Stories are what people remember. They do not remember information. And if you want to follow up with people and you think information is very important, you want them to get it, then that's when you write a book. That's when you create a course. That's when you do a webinar. That's when you create other ways for people to get your value even after the speech is over. Because again, a 60-minute speech, I'm going to remember maybe 2 minutes of what you said. And that 2 minutes is going to be all story. So stories and examples that illustrate your point, explain the logic behind your point, and explain its practical application. So what I do here in this masterclass that I do every single day, I'm going to tell you my point. I'm going to explain the logic behind the point. But on top of that, I'm going to give you a practical application of the point, maybe through a story. As I just told you the story, I was playing ball in Germany and an agent said, yeah, you scored all the points, but it looked like you were working too hard. You got to make it look easy. So the point is, you got to make it look easy when you're a professional. So that's the knowledge, that's the information. Now the story is, I was playing ball, I scored all these points, I thought I did great, and the agent said you did terrible because you didn't make it look easy enough. It looked like you were trying too hard. So that breaks your brains. You're like, wait, you scored all the points and they said it wasn't good? So you're always going to remember that one. The practical application is, this is the way that people are evaluating you. Because you're a professional, they expect you to make it look easy. So you see those three things: information, story, practical application. If you can figure that formula out, or not, I already figured it out. If you can apply that formula to every piece of information that you share, people will always remember the things that you put out there, and you'll always be able to create value for an audience. If you're a pro, you can do all these things: logic, story, practical application. With confidence, again, I give a story of people. I give a story of a guy who was playing basketball in practice, and the coach said, pretend to be the best player on the team this day, and he had this amazing game. Then I explained that that's not fake it till you make it. Then I brand it. I create my own label for it, and I call it the Super You. And I got a book called the Super You to solidify that, so nobody can try to come and steal my shit. You go look up the Super You, you're gonna see my shit. Then I explain it logically, why that makes sense. Then I handle the objections. So somebody might say, well, yeah, I get it, confidence, Dre, but what about having too much confidence? What about being arrogant? Now I'm going to knock down those objections before you even present the objections. And they may be in your head, you might not have said them, but I already know you're thinking them. And again, as a professional, it's my job to know what you're thinking without you even saying it. Then I'm going to knock all that down. That is what it means to have knowledge of a subject. Everything that I just said. So if you want to really be able to demonstrate your knowledge of a subject, whether as a writer, as a author, those are the same things, as a speaker, as a video person, as a social media influencer, all you got to do is follow everything I just told you in point number 2. I just basically gave you the whole game. Now you got to do the work, but I just gave you the whole game, all the stuff that you need. Point number 3. Today's topic is how they evaluate you. Usefulness to the audience of the knowledge acquired. Now, this one piggybacks on what I just said in point number 2 when I talked about the practical application of the things that you know. All right, it's one thing to know things. It's another thing to have a story to illustrate that you know something. Is another thing completely to give your audience a reason why they need to care, because this is how they can apply it in their lives. Now, this is a skill that I need a whole lot in my line of work, because a lot of what I talk about, again, the whole basis of this work on your game philosophy is I'm taking the pro athlete's mindset tools and I'm explaining how they apply in business, sports, and life. So if I'm talking to an audience of people who do not play sports, and this conference that I'm referring to that I got this evaluation sheet from, this was not a sports-based conference. The people in the room were not athletes. Or they work at their companies and their jobs every single day. So knowing that I'm a professional athlete might have got some of them intrigued to come in, but they're also probably wondering, and I opened the speech by saying this, what the hell is a basketball player doing at this conference talking about this stuff? What can you do with something that a basketball player knows? And then I have to be able to explain to them, this is the story that I got maybe from sports. This is the reason why it matters, the logic of it. That's just my explanation out of my head. But here's how you, even though you don't play ball, here's how you can use this at your office. Here's how you can use this at your shop. Here's how you can use this in your business as a freelancer. I got to be able to draw the line or build the bridge between what I learned on a basketball court and what you can use in an office building. That's a skill. And if you're a professional, you have this skill. You'll be able to draw a line from your experience to their experience. Again, wherever it is. You could be a business person and you could give some principles to a basketball team and they can use it if you are skilled enough to draw the line between your experience and their experience. That's what it means when I say usefulness to the audience of the knowledge they acquire. How can they use what you're giving them even though you're not from where they're from? This is a very important point, especially when you are from outside of the industry to which you are speaking. I mean, most of the places that I speak at, when I speak at conferences, I'm trying to think. I mean, besides the gigs that I did working with the NBA and with the G League, the NBA's developmental league, I have never given a speech to an audience of basketball players. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. All the speeches that I've done, those are the only speeches I did. When I was working with the NBA and the G League, it was the only time I gave a speech to an audience of basketball players. Otherwise, all my speeches have been to audience of business professionals, entrepreneurs, students, but never just an audience of people who play basketball. And the funny thing is, if I was speaking to an audience of basketball players, I might be the hardest one simply because a lot of the examples that I would give, they wouldn't land the same way because they already play basketball. So when I'm talking to people who don't play ball, it's actually easier to share those things because they are not as familiar with some of the experiences that a basketball player would have. So if I ever speak to a basketball audience, I'll probably give a completely different speech than one that I would give to a business audience. But the point of it is, the concepts that I share are not made for people who do exactly what I do. So I had to take the extra step of explaining to people how they can use the example that happened again in sports in their office. This is the glue that holds the talk together. So the glue is combining what you did in your industry to what this is your audience, what they're going to do in their industry. This right here, this skill right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moneymaker. So if you were kind of passively listening to what I just said, and you weren't really paying attention, rewind this and listen to it again. Because this is the money-making skill right here. When you can take your experience from thing A, and you can tell somebody in thing Z how they can use it, that's the moneymaker. That's the one that opens up the world for you. Because I might be a great plumber. Let's say I'm great at plumbing. I can fix toilets all day and pipes. But I don't know how to translate that experience to anyone other than plumbers. Then my audience is limited to only speaking to other plumbers because I can only tell people how this applies directly to doing the same thing that I do. But if I could take my plumbing experience and I can explain how that works for an architect or for a basketball player or for an auto manufacturer or for someone who paves roads in the streets or someone who's a banker or someone who sells cars, if I can take that same plumbing experience and translate it to all those other areas because I know how to put together the glue that connects the plumbing experience to the auto manufacturer or to the banker or to the road paver or to the architect, that's when it becomes the moneymaker because now I've opened my audience up to all of those other people, all of those other industries. You understand that? Without that glue, then I can only talk to one audience. And eventually, I don't know, that would be kind of boring for me. I don't know about you. I'm not saying it'd be boring for everybody. That'd be boring for me. I like being able to take the fact that I played basketball and step into a room full of business people who never played basketball and give them value in an hour. And they completely understand it, they remember it, they get value from it, and they want to get more from me. I enjoy that. And I don't know about you, again. But that glue is what puts everything together. Point number 4. Today's topic is how they evaluate you. Next question they ask on the evaluation sheet is, how would you improve the speaker's presentation? So this is basically where the people who run the events are asking the audience for their constructive feedback. So this question is designed specifically to draw criticisms. And I want to tell you something, what you probably already know if you use social media. When you allow people to criticize you anonymously, people get very bold. All right. So just expect that that's going to happen. When you allow anonymous criticism, you're going to get anonymous criticism, and you might get a lot of it depending on who's in your audience. Maybe, just maybe, you will find one useful piece of feedback from this question. I don't really like this question. I understand the necessity of the question. I understand that they have to ask it. It's fine to put it in there. But often when I read the evaluations that I've gotten from events like this and I see the constructive criticism category, oftentimes you'll get people nitpicking because they're being asked. If you just ask people to criticize you, they will come up with something. This is just the way that it works. I remember years ago on YouTube, this is probably around 2010, I put out this video and said, and the title of the video was Trash Me. Just, if you can look this video up on YouTube, it's still up there. I called it Trash Me. Just give me whatever feedback or whatever criticism you could have of my game, go ahead and put it in the comments. And everybody had something. Everybody came up with something. And it's not because all these people were just waiting to trash me, or that they were hating on me, or that they disliked me, or that I wasn't a good basketball player. The reason why it got so many comments and so much criticism is because I asked for it. When you ask people directly to criticize you, they will come up with something. This is a beautiful thing about being human, is that if you ask someone to criticize, they will come up with something. Even if they got a fish for any reason to criticize you, they will figure something out. I guarantee you. So if you ask this question, you better damn well be ready for what's coming, because I guarantee you what's coming. So this constructive feedback question, again, usually it hasn't had anything useful for me. And I don't know, maybe I'm tooting my own horn to say this, but I'm a damn good presenter. So usually the people in the audience aren't going to tell me anything that's going to make me better, because I know what the hell I'm doing. But if there was someone who is maybe less experienced or maybe not as good as a presenter, and there's someone in the room who actually is a good presenter, they may actually have some useful material for you. So do not completely throw this out offhand just because it was asking for criticism, because listen, there may be some constructive criticism that would actually help you. So I always read the criticism just to see what people are saying, but no, it's usually not that very good. Not very good. I remember when I spoke at this conference in Atlanta. I talked about this in my book, Work on Your Game. It was the same speaking engagement that when I stepped off the stage, I ended up doing the gig with the NBA, where I did about 10 to 15 dates for them the following season. And it was the same gig after which I signed the publishing deal that led to my book, Work on Your Game. I got both of those deals off of this one speech that I had done in Atlanta. And one of the feedback forms from that same speech was a person telling me, well, maybe you want to change up your format because a person or two walked out in the middle of your speech. That should be telling you that maybe your speech is not that good. The same speech that got me a book deal and got me doing 10 gigs with the NBA, this person was telling me something was wrong with the speech because somebody walked out of the room, allegedly. I didn't see anybody walk out, but it was 300 to 500 people in the room. I'm sure somebody walked out, but not because my speech wasn't good. So you have to understand, again, you got to be able to look at these things and sometimes take criticism with a grain of salt, and sometimes take it with I don't know, what's the other way to take it when it's not with a grain of salt? The opposite of a grain of salt. So this question is designed to draw criticisms, but you got to know what to keep and what to throw away. And this requires a certain level of mental toughness and also a certain level of personal security and confidence, so that you are not going up and down the elevator of self-esteem based on what other people say. As I told you in the episode on the 95% rule, let me find that episode so I can refer you to it. 95% rule was episode number 971, dealing with public opinion. And the gist of the 95% rule, I suggest you listen to the whole masterclass so you understand it deeply and emotionally, is that 95% of people are just following whatever the crowd is doing. 95% of people are going to cheer for you when everybody else is cheering. They're going to talk shit when everybody else is talking shit. 5% of people are going to keep it real, but the other 95% are just following everyone else. So do not allow yourself to get high on the positive or low on the negative. It doesn't matter what the audience is saying. The fans, what they're saying about you does not matter. Even when they're all telling you how great you are, don't buy into it. When they're telling you that you ain't shit, don't buy into that either. Doesn't mean that you're perfect when they're telling you that you're great, but it's just understanding it's part of the game. When they're telling you ain't shit, doesn't mean that you're terrible. The best thing that you can do dealing with this point number 4 here, the constructive feedback, is be so good that they don't even want to criticize you. All right, doesn't mean that you're perfect. Okay, just because people don't criticize you does not mean that you're perfect. It just means you're playing the game. All right, and this is a game. We're all in the game. That's why the show is called Work on Your Game. Point number 5. We got, how many points we got? We got 6 points here today. Today's topic is how they evaluate you. This is from, again, a professional speaking engagement that I did. These are the exact questions that was on the evaluation sheet for me and every other speaker who spoke at that event. These are the questions that get asked of you, and these are the questions that people are asking about you anytime you present yourself professionally, whether it's in a formal setting or just you could be meeting somebody in the elevator. They're asking themselves these questions. And when they're reading your book, listening to your podcast, masterclass audios, watching your YouTube videos, they are asking themselves these questions about you. And if these answers are not good, they're not going to keep going with you. Point number 5. What would you tell other people who are thinking about attending this session? So if someone else was thinking about coming and hearing Dre Baldwin speak again, what would someone who already heard me speak, what would they tell that person? This is where the audience members are being asked to summarize you and your presentation in 1 to 3 sentences. So let me give you some free game right here. Or it might not be free if you're a game group member. It's technically not free, but you get what I'm saying. Let me give you some free game right here. Help them out. Here's how you help them out. When you are giving a live presentation, and any of you who have ever heard me speak live or seen me speak live, or if you have listened to this show at least one time before, I do this every single time. What do? I summarize my points for you while I'm giving you my points. So if you ever hear me speak live, I'm going to give you point number 1, and I'm going to tell you, okay, I just gave you point number 1. Here it is. Then I give you point number 2, and I say, okay, now I've given you point number 1 and point number 2. Here they are. Number 1 is this. Number 2 is this. Then I give you point number 3. Now I do the exact same thing. I summarize it again. When I'm done, I say, all right, now I've given you number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, however many I've given you. And then I summarize the whole thing so that you understand it in a sound bite that is short and simple enough for you to remember. So if you want to help people out, this question again, what would you tell others who are thinking about attending this? You help them out by summarizing what you said. And of course, in a way that they're going to remember, that's obviously going to make you look good because it's reflecting on what you've already talked about. That's easy for them to remember, and they will give you back exactly what you have already seeded in their minds. All right. And you can say to them, look, if there's one thing you remember about this whole 90-minute talk that I've just given, here it is. Give them the 1 to 3 sentences that they need to remember. And when it's time for them to write down what their summary is, guess what? You have already helped them out by telling them what they need to give as an evaluation. Again, this is part of playing the game, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to be a hustler. You got to learn how to play the game. Knowing that these are the questions that are being asked, you must know how to utilize them and help people out. All right, make the job easy for them to give you a good evaluation, because a good evaluation is the difference between you getting another bag from this organization and you not getting another bag from this organization. Does that matter? I would think so. Point number 6. Today's topic is how they evaluate you. This is the last one. How did this session deliver on its promise? So what is the promise? You might be asking. How do we know that there was a promise? What are they talking about a promise? Well, here's how it goes. This is where we are juxtaposing expectations against reality. You see, any of you who's ever done this, spoken at a conference, or if you ever been to a conference as an attendee, you notice this. In the conference program, whether that's on the website or a pamphlet that you get handed when you get there, or in the application, or even outside of the room for some speakers, there'll be the name of the speaker, maybe their organization that they're from, and then the title of their talk and what the talk is about. It's like a brief synopsis, might be a paragraph, what the talk is going to be about. That's where you as the speaker, you sell your talk. You get one paragraph to tell people what this talk is going to be about. And that one paragraph also, by the way, is how you actually get chosen to speak in the first place. whether people think your talk is going to be interesting or not is based on that one paragraph you get to sell yourself. So your presentation, once you are in the room speaking, needs to reflect what you said in that paragraph. Because I'm coming in the room to hear you speak based on what it says in your, the little write-up about your talk. So your talk better be reflective of what you said. So you need to figure out, how do I make that talk, that little 1 to 3 sentence write-up, how do I make it compelling enough that people want to come hear it? And how do I make my speech reflective of what that compelling sales pitch was? And again, this question, how did the session deliver on its promise? This is where the attendees are comparing your sales pitch to your actual presentation. The expectation was the sales pitch versus reality, which is your actual presentation. At conferences, you get asked, as I already said, to write a description of your speech ahead of time. People attend your speech based on that description, all right? A lot of times they don't know who the hell you are. They're not taking a whole lot of time in Googling you and following all your stuff before they hear you present, because again, they don't know you from anybody else. All right, they haven't bought into you yet. They're not one of your fans. They're just coming there because you happen to be on the agenda and it sounds like you might have something good to say, but we're not sure yet. So they're coming there based on those 3 sentences that you got to write about your presentation and whether it's good or not, or the couple of bullet points that you get to give or what you're going to share. That's all they're coming off of. Your presentation better reflect that, and it better damn well be good. So your talk has to align with that description, or what's going to happen is you're going to have some unhappy people. Even if your presentation is amazing, if it doesn't align with the way that you sold it, somebody's going to tell you, or what you said you were going to talk about, you didn't even talk about. And that's going to get you a negative review. And you get too many negative reviews, again, you're not going to get that bag again. You're not going to be able to come back. So again, you got to learn how to play the game. I'm telling you up front how to play the game. This right here, this masterclass right here is something that I'm probably going to take out and sell individually to professional speakers. Now, if you're a gang group member, you're going to have access to this for as long as you have access to the membership. But I'm going to take this out and I'm going to sell this directly to professional speakers so that they understand what they need to do and how they need to present themselves and how they need to prepare themselves ahead of time before they get on the stage so that they look good in the long run. So any of you as a professional speaker, be glad that you're here listening to this, because I just gave you a whole lot of game here that's worth a whole lot more than whatever you paid to get access to this. So let's recap today's topic, which is how they evaluate you. I took this sheet from a conference that I was speaking at, and this is the exact form that attendees get asked to fill out after speeches when they're evaluating a presenter. Now, of course, the questions may change slightly from event to event, but these questions are pretty much the same at any event. I've been to a lot of events. They have these evaluation forms, and they all pretty much sound exactly the same. So these questions, if you can start to tailor your presentation, reverse engineer, and tailor your presentation around what these questions are, you're gonna look like a superstar. Point number 1. The instructor's delivery skills. Not just if you know your stuff, but can you get your message across clearly? Are you confident and competent as a speaker? Can people catch everything that you said? Do we understand it? Masterclass 931. What is expected of you when professional is next to your name? You got to make it look easy. Have a firm grip of your material that should be obvious. That's what people pay for. Point number 2, knowledge of your subject. Do you know what the fuck you're talking about? Do you have examples and stories that illustrate your point? And are you explaining the logic behind your point and its practical everyday application? If you're a pro, you should be able to do all of those with confidence. You should be able to do all of those, period, with confidence. For example, this is just me. I give a story of a basketball player in practice and how he used a super level of confidence for that one day to play great. Then I explain to them that it's not what you think it is. Then I brand it as what I call it. I call it the super you. Then I explain it logically. Then I tell people how you can use it every day. Then I handle the objections that people might have. I knock all of those out within, this could take me 5 minutes to knock the whole thing out. I can stretch it to 15 minutes as well, depending on how much time I have. This is what it means to have firm grasp of knowledge of a subject. Point number 3, usefulness to the audience of the knowledge you have acquired. How can the audience use what you're giving? It's very important, especially when you're from outside of the industry to which you are speaking. So for example, me being a former athlete, if I'm speaking to an audience of business people, I got to connect the basketball experience to the business experience. All right, so I'm usually not speaking to basketball players or authors or social media users or podcasters. So I'm speaking to people who don't do exactly what I do. So I had to take the extra step of explaining to them how they can use what I experience, how they can use that example and that knowledge in their area of expertise. This is the glue that pulls the whole talk together. Without it, I'm just talking and it's going to go over people's heads. Point number 4, How would you improve the speaker's presentation? This is where you're being asked, the audience is being asked for constructive criticism. This question is designed to draw criticisms, and when criticisms are anonymous, people can get bold and ridiculous. So you have to learn how to take these with a grain of salt, but also have the humility to look through them and see where maybe you could take something out that you could actually use. It's part of the game, but the best thing for you to do is be so good that people don't want to criticize you. And if nobody criticizes you, that does not mean that you're perfect. It just means that you're playing the game. Point number 5. What would you tell other people who are thinking about attending this speaker's presentation? This is where they get to summarize you and your presentation in a few sentences. You can help them out by doing what? Summarizing your presentation in a few sentences for them, so that when they have to give that summary, you already gave them what they need to say. Make it easy for them to remember. They'll give you back exactly what you have already planted in their minds. Point number 6. How did this session deliver on its promise? Here's where you juxtapose expectations against reality. At conferences, you are asked ahead of time to write a description of your presentation, and people attend based on that description. They don't know you. They haven't been following you on Instagram for 5 years. They only know you based on those 3 or 4 sentences you gave. So your talk better align with that description, or you're going to have some unhappy people who will definitely take advantage of number 4 and leave a hefty amount of criticism for you. If you are a professional speaker, I just gave you the whole game of how you need to put things together to make yourself look amazing. Work on your game. Dre all day.